Emilio continued, explaining that after being kidnapped, they are trained to shut off all emotions and taught to kill to survive. Those who resist or disobey are brutally tortured. As they grow older, they become terrifying killing machines, and no one can withstand their attacks. Finally, Dimo managed to tie up the girl, who kept trying to escape ferociously. They still didn't know what the girl wanted from them. However, Sean said, "I heard her say she wants to kill the prince." She kept repeating it, which meant she was sent here specifically to kill Emilio. Suddenly, the girl outsmarted Dimo, escaped from him, then pulled out her knife, deciding to kill him first before completing her mission. She moved quickly, attacking him with speed until Dimo unexpectedly broke the necklace around her neck. At that moment, the girl was shocked and recalled being imprisoned, chained, and seeing Emilio's image before her. She snapped back to her memories and brought out her explosives to kill Dimo, who, unaffected by her power, was confident he could handle her. Dimo managed to block all her attacks until he could get close and break the necklace around her neck. The girl was once again stunned, remembering the time she was tortured and forced to kill innocent people. But Dimo calmed her and said, "Your nightmare is over. Go on with your life and forget what happened to you." However, the girl replied, "Without killing, life has no meaning." Dimo said, "No, there is a purpose. I'll make you a part of my team and help you live out your childhood." After that, he handed her a toy and said, "I want you to always smile like other children your age." The girl listened to every word Dimo said and obeyed him. Soon after, they took her back to Louise and Phil, who were shocked to see her and asked her name. Dimo introduced Misha to the team, and she was accepted as a new member. Everyone welcomed her warmly. Not long after that, Pascal also welcomed her and said, "I'll have to leave you with them, Misha, as I'm leaving today." After that, Pascal went outside and sat with Emilio, who was disturbed by what he saw. Emilio was shocked by the conditions of the children in the city, how they suffered and were broken. He wanted to change all of that. Pascal then informed him that he would return to the palace to confirm something and would come back to join them. The next morning, they all parted ways, and the team continued on their journey. After some time, they arrived at a large, worn-out, abandoned ship. However, the man who brought them apologized and explained that the ship was meant to look that way to avoid attracting the city guard's attention. Dimo thanked him, and they all boarded the ship. Moments later, Phil and Misha began sparring. Misha was very strong and fought fiercely, giving Phil a hard time. Luz stopped their training, while Sean, who was on a ship for the first time, experienced seasickness and felt very uncomfortable. Fortunately, Carl gave him medicine to ease his seasickness, and finally, Sean felt better. They also wondered about Emilio's absence. As for Emilio, he was also severely seasick and eventually argued with Dimo. Emilio asked him, "Are you really sure you can convince the Zhou clan to join us?" Dimo believed in the clan and knew that not all members of the Zhou clan were evil. On the contrary, most of those exiled to the island were victims of injustice and imprisoned to prevent their escape. During a rough journey with stormy rain and waves, the children faced difficulties, especially Emilio and Sean, who fell several times and nearly got thrown overboard if not saved by Phil. Meanwhile, Misha stood calmly on the ship's deck, enjoying the harsh weather. Dimo then informed them that part of the ship was damaged, and they needed to reach their destination quickly. Emilio decided to create a magical barrier to keep the ship from sinking. Finally, they arrived on the island, with Sean and Emilio collapsing in exhaustion. Suddenly, the Zhou clan attacked them from all directions. Misha was about to draw her weapon, but the clan leader stopped her, explaining that they did not come to fight. Afterward, they spoke with the leader and asked for his help. However, a short time later, they were all tied up and seated on the ground, except for Luz, as she was also a member of the Zhou clan. Luz tried to defend her friends, but the clan leader ordered her to remain silent, saying that this was how they protected themselves. At that moment, Sean and Emilio realized that this distrust existed because of what the Andres people had done to them. The leader of the Zhou clan then asked, "Aren't you afraid of me? That must mean you have a specific purpose here. You must be the rebel forces, and your leader is Dimo." Dimo then said that they needed the help of the Zhou clan and its people to fight the king. However, the members of the Zo clan grew angry at this, fearing the power of the Andres. The clan leader then asked Demo, "What do we gain by helping you?" Demo replied, "You will gain freedom, respect, and be able to return to your homeland, instead of being exiled on this island. No one will bother you anymore." But the clan leader responded angrily, "Since when could we trust the Andres? Have you forgotten what you did to us? No one can trust your words." Sean, hearing this, was puzzled and asked Io, "What did the Andres do to them to create such hatred?" Io explained that the Zo clan was actually much stronger than the Andres and did all the labor in the city. However, those who made mistakes were punished, and the sick or weak were sent away to this island. "You want me to help you? Then you must agree to die. If you refuse, I will kill your friends and let you live alone. If you are truly sincere, you must know that your life is unimportant compared to the success of your plan." Of course, Phil was not affected by their words. They wanted to kill him, but Demo remained calm and told them that his plan had to succeed to inspire the people to rise against the king and overthrow him. Phil looked at the leader and said, "I agree to die, but on the condition that you help my team and don't harm any of them." The leader agreed and signaled to the guards holding weapons to decapitate Demo, who had accepted his fate. However, before the weapon could reach him, Luz moved quickly, breaking the weapon, and said to them, "I won't let you kill him." Surprisingly, Phil and his team also said, "Kill us instead." "We agree." The Zo became enraged and wanted to kill them until the leader roared loudly. As a lion, his voice was very loud and managed to calm everyone down. He then said to Demo, "I appreciate your decision and agree to help you. I'll meet you in my office later." Everyone gathered in one room, astonished that they were still alive and that things had gone well. As they sat, they saw Zo children who immediately ran away upon seeing them. Shun and Emily chased after them, but were surprised to see everyone staring at them in fear. Luz explained that because of Zo's power, everyone despised and treated them as slaves, making them suffer the most under the king's unjust decisions. We returned to the Zo leader, who was with Demo, trying to find a solution. When someone served him a drink, Demo quickly drank it to show that he trusted them and had no suspicion. The leader was pleased by this and said to him, "I am the leader of the Zo. My name is Grad." Demo shook his hand, and the leader agreed to help but wanted to know Demo's plan first. "Do you intend to fight the king's army?" Surprisingly, Demo replied, "No, I won't involve you or your family in any battles. I want the revolution to happen without casualties on either side. I only want to show the king that I am stronger than him and that many people will support my decision." The leader then asked, "Who will be the next king? Without a king, society and the city will fall apart." Demo replied, "Someone other than me will be king. If I become king, people will think I carried out this revolution to seize power. But don't worry. I'll choose a good king who won't oppress anyone and will treat everyone equally, regardless of wealth or poverty." A while later, Shun met Emilio, who was sitting alone and looked sad. At that moment, Shun told Emilio that Demo had managed to convince the Zo leader and that their mission was nearly complete, as they were close to defeating the king. But Shun was surprised to see Emilio's sadness until Emilio said, "I didn't know anything about all this. I didn't know people were tortured or children suffered. I never left the palace and didn't know what was happening outside. When Demo asked me what I would do after killing the king, I didn't know what to say." Sadly, he continued, "I just wanted revenge for my father's death, not to become king. But this country cannot fall apart, people's lives cannot stop, and there must be a king to rule after Dills. Tell me, Shun, what is the world where you live like? Is it the same as here?" Shun then described his world with joy, explaining that there, everyone lives equally, without discrimination or oppression, and all live in peace without war. Shortly after, a blue bird flew around the entire place, and it turned out to belong to an enemy from Menzo. That person knew that Demo had managed to convince the Zo leader, meaning their mission would be more difficult with Zo's involvement. Moreover, they decided not to inform Dills of what had happened and to act according to their own plan. The next day, Jared provided his team with a large ship filled with food and drinks as a simple gesture of support for his new allies. He He also gave them a strange whistle and told Dimo that if negotiations with the king failed and the king refused to listen, he should use the whistle to call him immediately. When Shun tried to blow the whistle, nothing happened at first, but a few seconds later, a blue bird perched on his head. At that moment, Jared explained that they used the bird to communicate with each other easily. Jared also reminded Dimo not to forget that he was ready to help whenever needed. After some time, the ship began to move, carrying them away as all the citizens of Zo waved them off, wishing them farewell. After a long journey, they arrived in a very cold place. Luz told them that this was only the beginning before they reached the icy mountains, so they decided to rest there before continuing. Shun and Emilio sat by the fire, arguing over who could get warmer, while the others spoke with local residents who were also planning a revolution and had gathered many people from the north willing to join Dimo. Dimo explained that he had already assembled a large team, but was waiting to negotiate with the king before engaging in any battles. They all hoped the king would agree and surrender, except for Emilio, who was certain that Dills was too arrogant to care about any of it. The next day, they put on warm clothes and set off toward the path through the icy mountains. They walked until a storm started, forcing them to set up tents and spend the night there. Inside Shun and Emilio's tent, Shun was jotting down notes and took the opportunity to ask Emilio why he wanted revenge on Dills. At first, Shun thought the king was Emilio's father, but Emilio revealed that Dills was not his biological father and that he sought revenge because Dills had killed his father to seize the throne. Shun then looked at Emilio and asked, "If someone killed your father, would you forgive them?" Shun's answer was that he could never forgive, but also couldn't become a killer, as he didn't want his mother to live alone. Emilio then remembered a moment when he took a weapon from someone whose face he could no longer recall, realizing for the first time that he couldn't even remember his father's face. The following day, they continued their journey and arrived in a snow-covered area where they discovered the footprints of a large dragon. Shun grew anxious at the sight until, suddenly, Io fell through the ground. Fala made a strange sound, indicating her fear. Io had fallen into an ice-filled cave, where he heard the sound of a dragon behind him. Before long, the rest of the group entered the cave, and Fala began searching for Io, demonstrating that she could sense people's energy and locate them. When she finally found Io, a large dragon appeared, and Shun and Emilio immediately drew their weapons. Since it was an ice dragon, it attacked them with ice instead of fire. Jared was at a loss, as only Io could help them. They ran as fast as they could to escape, but suddenly, another dragon appeared in front of them. Shun and Emilio stood in front of Io to protect him. However, Fala suddenly flew with a magical aura surrounding her and transformed into a large form, attacking the dragon with fire that hit its mark. Io was stunned to see his pet transform like that, and when he touched Fala, a bright light filled the area, and he found himself in another place. At that moment, Fala called to him, and everyone was shocked to realize that Fala could speak. But Io was even more shocked to hear his father's voice coming from the dragon. His father explained that he was now just a spirit, allowing him to communicate with Io. He promised to tell Io everything that had happened, and to reveal how he died and what had happened to those trapped within the remaining energy. I was young back then, living my life devoted to hunting, always accepting dangerous jobs to push myself and develop my skills. One day, while fighting a dangerous monster, I nearly died. But suddenly, my weapon changed and managed to kill those monsters. That was when I realized that the remnants of energy within me were influenced by the emotions and spirit of its owner. This energy continued to grow with its owner's emotions and power. From that moment on, I was determined to become stronger and develop my own energy. Eventually, I succeeded in developing my weapon into 2 different forms. I thought that was the limit of my strength until I forgot that those who had used this energy before had seen their lives ruined as it affected them. However, some time ago, I managed to meet Alicia and observed her from a distance. Alicia was surprised to learn that her father had once been a hunter who fought monsters. I told her that I had hidden all of this to protect my family, which was more important than this residual energy and its conflicts. That's why, after a while, I left this work and chose another path. But Alicia nearly lost her mind because, at the age of 10, her mother had died, and her father had vanished without a trace. At that moment, I was shocked to learn that her mother had been killed by bandits. Of course, the girl believed her mother had died in a mere accident, but I told her I was determined to avenge my wife's death. So I left Alicia at home and went searching for the bandits everywhere, killing them all. Then, the energy within me suddenly surged drastically, pulling my body and trapping me within my weapon. I realized that the last feelings lingering inside me were hatred and a desire for revenge. Finally, my energy transformed into something alive, unbound by any creature or specific weapon, and able to act on its own. Thus, I chose to remain within my weapon. However, Alicia didn't understand that the sacred weapon she always carried was actually her father. I explained to her that I had always been with her, trapped within the weapon, yet I would emerge to protect her whenever she was in danger. At that moment, I appeared before her because she was often sad, feeling orphaned since childhood and believing she was alone. I wanted to prove to her that I was always by her side and with her whenever she needed. After that, I disappeared and everything returned to normal. They were then confronted by Diamond's forces, who understood nothing. Suddenly, Alicia appeared with many dragons. The dragons began attacking out of fear, but after a while, they left the area to reach the mountain's peak. The dragons eventually guided them to their destination and then returned to their nests. There, they set up camp on the border. They were told that they were very close to Babylon. Naturally, they took a different route from the royal road, estimating they would arrive before the king. Sean was worried that the gates of Babylon would be damaged, unlike Emilio, who was certain that Delis was targeting something dangerous at the mountain's peak and needed to be stopped. Suddenly, Alicia fainted, signaling that she had seen something in the future. When she regained consciousness, they all gathered in her tent, concerned about her condition. With sadness, Alicia explained that she had foreseen terrible events, including the destruction of Endora and humanity's downfall. This suggested that something dreadful was going to happen, something she couldn't even describe. Demo realized that their future was in danger, while Io was still confused and couldn't grasp the vision's meaning. After some time, they arrived at the royal army camp and entered the king's tent. There, a great scientist explained that he had discovered a unique way to restore Babylon's gate. The scientist praised himself, claiming that his discovery was the result of his extraordinary talent. However, Delis said, "I don't need a lecture. Tell me what you've accomplished." The scientist then explained that they already knew how to restore Babylon, but still needed a few final adjustments, which would take a bit more time. The king didn't mind because he'd already waited long enough, so waiting a few more hours didn't bother him. However, the researcher said to him, "Be patient, Your Majesty. But why are you so eager to return to Babylon?" The researcher added, "I am here to support you, but I want to know your purpose." The king rebuked him, "That's none of your business. Mind your own affairs before I order them to behead you." Suddenly, the Zeus soldiers arrived, and their commander said, "Allow us to behead him, Your Majesty." The soldiers, however, stopped them, thinking they were enemies. But then a blue-clad youth arrived with the latest news, and they learned that Agona had sided with the Zoo people from the north. The king said, "This means you disobeyed my order, Ebel." The king reprimanded Ebel, noticing an injury on his chest, and said, "I asked you to monitor them, not fight with them. This is your final warning. Fortunately, Emilio punished you this time. If you approach them again, I'll kill you myself." The soldiers grew frustrated with the arrogant king and began to insult and argue with him. They observed them disdainfully, seeing them as nothing more than animals. At that moment, Beta drew his weapon to kill them, but they quickly fled. The young man was curious about why the king was so obsessed with Babylon and the surface world. As they were talking, an old man in blue arrived and informed them that Agona was very close to Babylon. Meanwhile, we returned to Pascal, who had entered the royal library and realized that all information about Babylon had been completely erased, leaving only useless fragments. The young man was nearly driven mad, wondering why the king was so obsessed with Babylon. He was certain that Shun would find it difficult to return to the surface without more information about Babylon. Then, a young man named Joe arrived, who had a deep admiration for Pascal and always shared the latest news with him. It became clear that Joe was the one who had tampered with the research on Babylon to delay it slightly, but his teacher discovered this that night and informed the king. However, the young man was exhausted after traveling a long distance to the large laboratory and told Pascal that he had created an electric circuit that could transport him elsewhere, though it needed some further development. Pascal said to him, "Get to work quickly, kid. Why are you coming to me?" Joe reported that the molecular residue measurements had been completed and the results would be available tomorrow. Of course, his commander was overseeing this, but Joe sent someone to investigate. He was referring to the energy measurements Pascal had observed at the lake, which interested Pascal because molecular residue was a vital part of Endora, and if this continued, all of Endora would suffer. We then returned to the Agonat camp with Shun and Emilio. Shun was worried about all the conversations happening and feared he might not be able to return to the surface. However, Emilio reassured him, saying, "Don't worry. I'll personally make sure you return, even if this war fails. This is our problem, and you shouldn't be affected by it." Each of them reflected on their shattered lives. Amal, who was bent on seeking revenge at any cost after the death of a loved one, and Shun, who simply wanted to return to his world and put an end to all this. Shun said, "Since we're stuck together, I'll help you until the end, but I still believe killing is wrong, even for revenge. Try to find another way." Amal, however, pretended to sleep to avoid further discussion, as Shun would never understand her true desire for revenge. The next morning, Shun was awakened by the sound of Demo talking to someone named Ralph. As he approached them, not knowing who Ralph was, Demo introduced Ralph as one of their friends who had escaped during the zoo monster attack. They had traveled far from the capital, persuading people to rebel, and successfully gained the support of many, including nobles, who were key figures and wealthy individuals, to join their cause. Naturally, Shun felt happy knowing that their army, once small, had grown considerably. Ralph then left to continue recruiting new allies, while Demo and Hu also set off. Now, only Shun and Amal remained, puzzled by the cooperation between Zhu and the nobles, yet still glad to have a powerful army that could aid in her revenge. After that, we shifted to Loza, who had once been an informant for a mysterious young man known as the Blue One. With a sense of sadness, he expressed that this was the only way for him to live in peace. As he became lost in his thoughts, Demo appeared behind him, exploiting his fears and uncertainties. Shocked, Maha left Demo behind. However, Demo pursued him, saying, "Ralph and our forces have convinced the nobles. Now we have a strong army in every country." Strangely, Maha remained silent, only uttering, "Sorry," in a regretful tone, as if about to do something dangerous. Meanwhile, we returned to Emilio, Shun, and Alicia, who had just received the latest news. Emilio seemed pleased at the thought of overthrowing the king. Shun then asked, "Do you still plan to kill the king?" Emilio replied firmly, "Of course. I must avenge my father. This has been my life's goal for years. Nothing can erase the hatred in my heart for Dials. I left the kingdom and gave up my status as a prince just to kill him." When Shun tried to convince Emilio that his thinking was wrong, Emilio became angry, saying, "You don't need to interfere. You'll return to the surface, so don't worry about our affairs." Shun then grabbed Emilio's collar and angrily said, "Are you insane? Don't let hatred control you to the point where your weapon becomes a prison for yourself." Emilio, brushing off Shun's hand, replied, "Stay out of my business." Growing more emotional, Shun struck Emilio, causing him to fall to the ground. But before he could continue, Shun noticed Emilio lying there, resigned. With sadness, Shun said, "Why do you think I'm selfish? I want to help, and I care about your troubles." Then, Shun walked away, leaving Emilio, who furiously struck the ground, saying, "I can't turn away from my revenge." We then transitioned to Pascal, who had received reports that molecular energy across Endora had been depleting. If this continued, Endora could be destroyed. After examining the report, Pascal realized the energy decline began when Dials became king, and he was certain it was no coincidence. There was a connection between the lack of energy and Dials. Concerned, Pascal hurried to Babylon to find Emilio, though he didn't know how to reach it quickly. That's when Uncle Joe, with a mysterious smile, led him to his strange laboratory. He revealed that he had created a special device for his personal research. This device was a small aircraft unknown to anyone. They boarded the craft and rushed towards Babylon. Meanwhile, the king and his troops had finished preparations, and the king firmly declared, "Finally, I will ascend to the surface and realize my dream." At the same time, Emilio's team arrived in Babylon, heading towards an ancient area known as Babul. This city was once bustling but had since become a legend as a place inhabited by demons and connected to the land of death. The team unfolded an ancient map showing 4 towers, each leading to a different location. They chose the Tower of Fire, as it was the one connected to Babylon. As they searched for the main entrance, Amino found a hidden key and called Dimo. When Dimo moved a large stone, a secret door opened, revealing stairs leading underground, which were thought to be the main path to Babylon. Before entering, Dimo instructed them to throw a star bomb along the path as a precaution. However, the star bomb returned without detonating, indicating the path was safe. As they proceeded, they saw footprints, suggesting that Dials and his forces had arrived first, so they needed to move quickly. Sean looked around and said, "So, where's the door, everyone? Let's hurry up." Phil responded, "What door, my dear? We're going to climb this awesome tower." Of course, Sean couldn't imagine doing that, so he asked Vela, "Can you shapeshift and take us there?" However, Vela and her friend firmly refused. In the end, they all began climbing the tower, while Dimo's team went ahead as they were already used to this, unlike Sean and Emilio, who nearly fell but were saved by Sean's quick reaction. After that, Emilio, for the first time, thanked Sean for saving his life. They continued their journey until they finished climbing the tower and found a massive wall in front of them. They realized they also had to climb this wall. At that point, they threw ropes and divided into groups to move faster. They all managed to get down except for Dim and his female friend. Dim then said to her, "I just want you to know that I will not obey the king for any reason. I intend to negotiate with him or defeat him and find a new ruler. But my hands will not be stained with blood." Emilio countered, "That's impossible. He won't listen to you or talk to you. He's a demon who must die to keep everyone safe. However, killing the king won't solve the kingdom's problems or fix the weather, and the issues won't end with the deaths of many." Dim then asked Emilio why he wanted to kill the king, who should be his father. Emilio was shocked and told him that Dills was not his father, and it was Dills who killed his real father, so he must take revenge and kill him. At that moment, Dim told Emilio that he also felt a connection to the death of his best friend, who was killed by a noble, and for that reason, he trained hard to become stronger. But as he grew older, he realized that killing wasn't the right way to seek revenge. If he killed that noble, his friends would come looking for him in vengeance, and the cycle of revenge would never end. Then Dim said, "That's why I don't bow to anyone. But let me ask you, what is your plan if you succeed in killing the king? What will happen to your people and your army without a ruler?" When Emilio didn't answer, Dim added, "Generally, I don't want to hear your voice in front of the king, and let me negotiate with him. Don't ever draw your weapon." Emilio was annoyed and descended the mountain, followed by his friends who tried to calm him down. But Dim advised, "Don't be reckless. Before thinking about revenge and killing, first ask the reason. Maybe you're mistaken." Then, they entered the tower gate that led them to the path toward Babel. Meanwhile, we switched to Dimo's team walking along a long road until they reached the last gate to Babel. Emilio ran quickly, but suddenly a Zal army appeared to stop him. A wolf attacked Emilio, who was taken by surprise, but Io protected him with a magical shield. The leader was furious because they were fighting the prince, but the man didn't care and still sought revenge. At that moment, Sean and Emilio drew their weapons and decided to fight him, before Dim eventually joined in. The man's name was Grid, an assassin, but Dimo didn't care about his name, and his team fought valiantly. An intense battle ensued between them, from Misha fighting a mechanical robot to Phil taking on a strange monster. Dimo fought with Grid's leader, while Sean and Emilio faced the wolf, who wanted to leave a mark on their bodies like his own scars. We see Misha defeating her enemy and moving quickly, while Phil continued fighting with his sword. Just as his opponent was about to kill Phil, He drew his second weapon and quickly transformed his body. At that moment, Demo spoke to Grid, saying, "Now, you'd better surrender." But suddenly, a magical light appeared, and the wolf continued attacking. But this time, Emilio managed to block his attack with full strength. The wolf said to him, "Unfortunately, the king ordered me not to kill you, even though you're his son, and even tried to kill him. However, he ordered me not to approach or touch you. But I will not follow his orders." Then he began to strike Emilio swiftly and forcefully, disarming him. The wolf attacked again to kill him, but suddenly Emilio's weapon evolved, appearing stronger, and Emilio quickly grabbed it and struck back. Shun took this opportunity to attack him, but the wolf dodged Shun's attack and threw his sword at him, nearly hitting him if it weren't for Emilio's shield blocking the blow. Emilio didn't want to waste time with these distractions and wanted to reach Deli's immediately, so they all moved toward the gate except for Emilio, who stayed behind to hold back the monster from following them. When Emilio touched it, the gate opened, and they all entered quickly, leaving Emilio behind to stop the monster from pursuing them. Emilio was confident in his power, but was shocked when he saw Luz strike and shatter his shield. Afterward, they spoke. Luz said, "Why didn't you follow the orders given to you?" Beta greeted Luz by saying, "Nice to see you, Luz." Emilio, who didn't understand what was happening, was stunned. Beta mocked him, saying, "Did you forget she's one of us? Your foolish revolution means nothing to her." Of course, Emilio was stunned by Luz's betrayal, but Luz didn't care and said, "Nothing will change. I can live in Andra because of my human appearance, and no one knows my identity. But I can't abandon my family." We later learned that his father was a chemist and his mother a seamstress, both highly skilled in their fields. Unfortunately, they never had the chance to showcase their talents because his father was a Zoe and looked like them, and his mother had married one of the Zoe. Both of them worked as slaves in Andra. Emilio said, "We already know all of that, and that's why you joined Demo to take revenge on them." However, Luz replied, "Revenge? Money is what matters most to me. Money is what makes me happy among all of you. That's why I worked as a spy and sold all your information to the assassins for their money, so I could support my family. This revolution and its people are for people like you, not for someone like me, a Zoe." Beta then said to him, "Come on, kill him, and I'll pay you even more." Luz raised her weapon to kill Emilio, but suddenly Demo appeared with Philo, and Demo spoke mockingly, "I thought if you killed me, they would pay you more." Luz retorted, "You're a fool. Your image and all of this mean nothing. It's useless." Demo was stunned, revealing that he had known all along that Luz was a traitor who had leaked all their information to the assassins, especially since the prince joined them. Luz grew furious and attacked Demo swiftly, but he blocked her strike, and Luz continued her relentless assault. Demo could only fend off her blows. Then, we returned to Emilio and his team, and suddenly Shun stood in the middle and said, "I won't help you with your revenge. You should talk to him first," just as Demo said. However, Emilio ignored his words, and the gate opened. When Shun tried to stop him, Emilio struck him hard and quickly ran towards Deli's. A servant informed him that their task was complete, and the gates of Babylon would open for a certain time and then close again. The king was eagerly focused on achieving his goal, but suddenly Emilio reached him and called out. They stood facing each other in a high-stakes confrontation. At that moment, Emilio drew his weapon forcefully and said to him, "I've finally found you, and I will have my revenge." However, the king was indifferent and said, "You're not strong enough yet." Emilio grew angry and said, "Draw your weapon, and I'll show you whether I'm strong enough or not." But the king remained indifferent, asking what would happen to Andorra after he was killed. What would happen without a king? Emilio didn't know how to answer until the king said, "I told you before, Emil, that I was waiting for you to come and take the throne with your own hands." Emilio charged at him with intense fury, determined to kill him. A fierce battle was underway between Demo and Luz. Luz attacked him with full force, intent on finishing him, while at the same time, Beta was also fighting Misha and Philo. Beta didn't want to be delayed and wanted to reach Babel quickly. He told Luz to kill them so he could proceed. Luz focused on her fight with Dimo, who continued to deflect her blows. Dimo instructed Misha and Philo to pursue quickly. Luz grew increasingly frustrated because Dimo refused to kill her even though he knew she had betrayed him and continued to treat her kindly. Finally, Luz struck Dimo hard, but he only countered with a single punch and said, "Calm down. I've heard everything and understand why you joined them," Dimo said. "I know you wanted to save your family from poverty and support them, but what do you truly want? Do you really hate me? When you saved me from Jared and his men, was that also just an act?" Luz fell silent, affected by his words and gaze. To prove her point, she attacked him with her weapon, intending to kill him. But Dimo surrendered and awaited her final reaction. Suddenly, Luz halted her weapon in shock just as she was about to kill him. Dimo said, "Calm down. It seems you're holding on to a lot of anger. I'm here to help you." Luz lowered her weapon and admitted that the assassins were the king's dogs who did anything for money. She decided to become like them, with her first mission being to spy on Agano. At first, Luz didn't care about the idea of rebellion, but when she saw Agano gathering all the poor people around him and helping them, she also began to dream of a time when she could overthrow the king's tyranny. However, everything changed with the arrival of the prince and his friends. She decided to abandon those agents and join the assassins, spending all her time filled with regret for her betrayal. While she wept, realizing her mistake, Dimo handed her a tissue and comforted her. Dimo then cut the emotional moment short, saying they needed to move toward Babel. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a battle with the wolf continued, and they didn't know how to defeat it. The wolf said, "Surely Luz has killed your foolish commander by now." Philo, growing increasingly enraged, began attacking savagely with his sword, while Misha launched bombs from behind. However, the wolf disappeared, deciding to head to Babel to continue his mission. Dimo's team finally arrived, and they also decided to descend into Babel. At the same time, Pascal and Joe arrived and entered the tower by plane. We shift to the prince and the king, where Emilio was fighting with fierce anger, saying, "I hate you. You took everything good in my life, killed my father, and separated me from Pascal. I will kill you." The prince looked confused and didn't understand anything. Then, Shun and Elisa called Emilio to calm him down, just as the wolf arrived at the gate and found his injured friend. However, he didn't care. His only goal was to ascend and end this world. The wolf killed his friend to prevent any interference. Shortly after, Jared was suddenly attacked by the wolf and wounded in the shoulder. Jared was confused, especially after seeing his wounded friend and realizing the wolf had betrayed them. The wolf didn't care and wanted to reach the summit to end his life filled with misery, with plans to kill the king first. Suddenly, he killed his commander to make sure no one would stop him. Elsewhere, a man was playing with a control device when he noticed a red light, which suddenly activated the Babel Gate. The light spread powerfully throughout the tower, signaling that the Babel Gate was about to open. He called the king and said, "The gate will open in a few minutes," but Emilio shouted, "I won't let you escape. I must take my revenge." Suddenly, Emilio remembered that the person who gave him the sword was Dels, but he said, "No, that's impossible." Emilio quickly attacked him to finish him off. The gate suddenly opened, and the man told the king, "The gate is open. You have to move quickly before it closes again." However, the fight between them continued. Shun was still not finished, and the king spoke with difficulty. He understood that he had to act quickly, so he immediately ran toward the gate. Before Emilio could get close, Shun stopped him quickly and said, "Enough with your foolishness. For God's sake, enough." Then he looked at the king and asked, "Old man, is this child really your son?" A surprise unfolded as the king nodded and said, "Yes, he is my son, but I don't understand why he hates me." At that moment, Shun said, "Then why not just tell us why you killed his biological father?" The king raised his weapon, ready to speak, but suddenly, the old wolf appeared, laughing wickedly. Before he could attack, Emilio immediately blocked his attack to protect the king and his friend from danger. As the king shouted for him to stop, his enemy instead responded mockingly, "Hold on, old man. Let me finish off your sweet child first." Then he attacked Emilio, knocking him toward Shun, nearly killing them both if the king hadn't immediately protected them. As he prepared to draw his weapon, the enemy swiftly attacked, driving his weapon into the king's body, which, unfortunately, resulted in his death. Thus, the king passed away. Emilio screamed his name in terror as he watched him fall before him. All of his followers immediately fled the place after learning that the king had been killed and fearing they would be slain by the monster. Suddenly, the light from the Babel Gate grew even brighter, and the enemy moved closer to the gate, intent on reaching the surface and escaping from that world after destroying everything in his original world. Emilio and Shun quickly attacked him as he neared the gate. He said, "I would love to kill you both as I killed the king, but I must leave you alive to destroy the other world. See you later, sweet ones." Then he entered the gate and emerged on the surface. His device changed color to red as the light in the area faded, indicating that he had arrived on the surface. After that, the gate closed completely. Emilio quickly ran to the dying king, saying farewell to the world. At the same time, Pascal and Joe arrived with Demo's troops, but they were too late, as it was all over. The king didn't care about any of it. He looked at Emilio with happiness and said, "Finally, you have become as strong as I always dreamed. You are the greatest prince there ever was. Now I can die in peace because you will become king in my place, just as I always hoped." Emilio couldn't hold back his emotions and began to cry upon realizing the truth too late. Suddenly, the king closed his eyes with resignation, and Emilio cried harder upon realizing that his father was gone. Everyone fell silent without a word, until Pascal approached Emilio and embraced him, sharing in his deep sorrow over his father's death. Throughout his journey, his goal had been to kill his father, but it turned out he was mistaken, and the one who lay dead before him was his biological father. Now, we are in a place called the Land of Death in the Underworld, specifically in Hell, where monsters and demons are meant to live. This is a place Shun had always wanted to visit to see what they looked like, as he often read about them in books, especially because he never believed there was an underworld that could be reached so easily. However, fate had brought him to the underworld, known as Endo, where he was forced to stay and didn't know when he could return to his original world, especially after the Babel Gate was completely closed.